In a world loud with half-truths and rushed emotions, silence can feel holy. But there's a kind of silence that doesn't heal. It haunts. It lingers in the unanswered messages, in the seen but not replied to, in the final pause that never finds a closing sentence. She didn't expect you to go silent forever, and maybe you didn't plan to. But Stoicism reminds us, even in silence, we are speaking. First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Epictetus. We often think Stoicism is about suppressing emotion, pulling back, staying distant. But it's not. Stoicism is about showing up, calmly, clearly, intentionally. It's not silence out of fear or anger. It's not ghosting to avoid discomfort. It's presence, even in endings. This reflection isn't to shame you. It's to awaken something deeper. Because you're not heartless. You're human, and humans feel. They fear. They pull away. But Stoics? They learn to face what most run from. So if this message stirred something in you, even slightly, if it reminded you of someone or maybe of yourself, take a second, breathe, reflect. And if you find value in these quiet truths, this little corner of calm in the chaos, help us grow. Like this post, subscribe, share it with someone who needs it. Your small support means the world to our small work. We're not trying to go viral. We're just trying to go deeper. 1. Don't disappear. Even if you're hurting. There's a difference between needing space and vanishing without a word. She didn't expect forever silence, just a little time, maybe a little clarity. But when you go completely silent, when you shut the door without explanation, Stoicism reminds us, you're not just protecting your peace. You might also be wounding someone else's, and that's not strength. That's avoidance. It's tempting, isn't it? To retreat when things get overwhelming. To convince yourself that no response is better than the wrong one. To say nothing because you don't have the right words, or because your pride, your fear, or your own hurt is louder than your reason. But the Stoics taught us to act with intention, not impulse. Epictetus didn't say, avoid pain at all costs. He said, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. That includes listening to the silence between people, yours and theirs. Going silent forever doesn't resolve tension. It suspends it. It turns a hard truth into an open wound. If a relationship needs to end, Stoicism doesn't stop you from walking away. It just asks you to walk with clarity, to leave without cruelty, to speak without blaming, to exit in a way that doesn't betray who you are trying to become. And maybe she wasn't perfect either. Maybe she said too much, or asked too often, or touched a part of you that was already sore. But she didn't expect you to disappear into silence like a ghost. She expected you to respond, even if it hurt. That's what Stoic strength really is. Not suppressing your emotion, but responding with control, with respect, with presence. So the next time you feel like pulling away, remember, silence speaks too. Make sure yours says something honest, not something that leaves someone wondering if they ever mattered at all. 2. Say what's true, even if it's hard. Silence can feel like the easy way out, but truthfully, it rarely is. Sometimes we don't go silent to protect ourselves. We do it to protect the truth, because saying it out loud makes it real. I'm not ready. I'm hurting. I don't love you the same way anymore. These are heavy words, and in the quiet, it feels like we can delay the weight of them. But Stoicism doesn't support delay. It encourages courage, not just in battle or loss, but in conversation. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." But he never said, "Don't say anything at all." Truth, even when difficult, is a form of care. It offers closure, it offers dignity. And sometimes silence masquerades as kindness, but it's actually cowardice. She didn't expect everything to stay perfect. She didn't need all the answers either. But what she did expect, what most people expect, is honesty. Not perfection, just something real. A few words to let her know where she stood, even if they stung. Silence doesn't just confuse, it breeds insecurity. It makes people question their worth, their instincts, their memory of everything that was shared. And maybe you weren't sure what you felt. That's human. But say that. I'm unsure. I need space. I don't have the right words yet. Even those are better than vanishing. Stoicism isn't about never feeling lost. It's about showing up with integrity even when you are. Truth spoken gently is still stoic. It honors your reason. It respects theirs. So when you're tempted to disappear instead of speak, ask yourself, is it really about peace? Or just fear of being the bad guy? Be brave enough to speak the truth. Even a hard truth is softer than silence. 3. Emotional control doesn't mean emotional shutdown. Let's clear something up. Stoicism doesn't tell you to shut down. It tells you to show up without letting your emotions drive the wheel. There's a big difference between mastering your feelings and burying them in silence. When you went quiet, maybe you told yourself, I just need to calm down. That's okay. The Stoics did believe in emotional discipline, but when calm down turns into never speak again, you've crossed from discipline into avoidance. Seneca warned us about this. He wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." And guess what? Communication, especially in emotional moments, is a kind of adversity. It's a test. Stoicism teaches us to stay anchored when storms come. But it doesn't mean we ignore the waves crashing around us. If someone you care about is reaching out, hurting, or confused, and your response is only silence, that's not calm, that's cold. And coldness isn't clarity. Emotional strength is the ability to feel deeply and still choose your response. It's being able to say, I'm overwhelmed right now, but I don't want to hurt you. So no, emotional control doesn't mean becoming a stone. It means becoming still, not silent. It means using your pause to find the right response, not to vanish altogether. 4. You don't need the last word. You just need an honest one sometimes. Silence isn't about fear or confusion. It's about power, about being the one who leaves first, or who ends the conversation on their terms. And in moments like that, going silent can feel like control, like you're protecting your dignity. But Stoicism warns us against mistaking ego for virtue. Epictetus reminds us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Silence used as a weapon, a way to punish, confuse, or win, isn't stoic. It's reactive. It's driven by wounded pride, not rational virtue. You don't need to have the final say to have self-respect. You just need to say what's real, and say it with calm. She didn't expect you to go silent forever. She expected some kind of closure, not drama, not a long explanation, just honesty. A word, a line, a sign that she wasn't talking to a memory, but to a person who once cared enough to be present. Stoicism teaches us to choose what's within our control. And here's the truth. You can't control how someone hears your words, but you can control whether you leave them with silence or clarity, whether your exit leaves peace or questions. Even a brief goodbye spoken with care can be more powerful than 1,000 perfectly worded messages never sent. And if your heart's too heavy, Just say that. I don't know what to say, but I don't want to disappear on you. That's human. That's Stoic strength. So no, you don't need the last word. You don't need to prove anything. But if there's something unsaid still resting on your chest, let it out. Not to fix the past, but to free both of you from it. Because silence doesn't always signal peace. Sometimes it's just the echo of something that should have been said. 5. People deserve a goodbye. Not a vanishing act. Maybe you didn't mean for it to be forever. Maybe you told yourself you'd reach out when things felt lighter, when you had your thoughts sorted, when life wasn't so heavy. But time passed, and the longer you waited, the harder it became to say anything at all. The silence turned into a wall, and eventually it felt easier to let it stay up than to try and tear it down. But here's the thing. She didn't expect you to go silent forever. She expected a goodbye, a message, a moment of honesty. Not just for her, but for you too. Because when we vanish without closure, we don't only leave others hanging. We carry the weight of unfinished endings with us, quietly, for much longer than we admit. Seneca once wrote, "While we wait for life, life passes. And in waiting to say goodbye the right way, you may miss the only chance to say it at all." You don't need to be eloquent. You don't need to have a perfect explanation. A few sincere words, "I care about you, but I need to go," can be more healing than silence ever could be. Stoicism isn't about avoiding hard conversations. It's about facing them with courage and composure. It's about honoring the humanity that's in others, even when a chapter has to end. And when we leave people with silence, we deny them the dignity of that ending. We rob them of the chance to process, to understand, to grieve with context. She didn't expect everything to last. She just expected to be treated like someone who once mattered, someone who deserved something more than a fade out. So the next time you feel the urge to just disappear, remember, even a goodbye whispered with vulnerability holds more grace than silence ever could. Let your parting words carry weight, not wounds. 6. Growth isn't always loud, but it's never completely silent. Sometimes we think disappearing is growth, that cutting people off, going dark, or staying distant means we've evolved, like we're too healed for conversations now, too emotionally mature to entertain conflict. But real growth? It's not about building walls. It's about learning how to show up differently. She didn't expect a grand speech. She didn't need an emotional performance. But she did expect something, some reflection of the connection you once shared. And when silence is all that's left, it can feel like the whole story was just an illusion. But it wasn't. And Stoicism teaches us not to erase the past, but to carry it wisely. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." That includes being someone who can close a door without slamming it, someone who can walk away without pretending nothing mattered. Growth means we can still honor what was, even if it's no longer what we need. If you've grown, show it. Not in long explanations or emotional pleas, but in a simple, respectful goodbye. In taking the time to say, "I've changed, but I still see you." Because silence often sends the wrong message, that they didn't matter, that their role in your story was forgettable. And deep down, you probably know that's not true. So no, growth doesn't have to be loud. You don't need to explain your every move. But complete silence, that's not strength. That's hiding behind the idea of strength. Real growth is soft, quiet, but never cruel. It's found in the gentle honesty that says, "I care about you, but I'm going in a different direction now." That's stoic. That's human. And that's the kind of silence that doesn't leave scars. It leaves peace. 7. Silence doesn't erase responsibility. It's easy to believe that if we don't say it, it's not ours. That if we stay quiet long enough, the discomfort will pass, the questions will fade, and the people we left behind will eventually get the hint. But Stoicism doesn't let us off the hook that easily. It teaches that silence doesn't erase responsibility. It reveals how willing we are to carry it. She didn't expect you to fix everything. She didn't expect perfect words or immediate understanding. But she did expect you to take ownership of your impact. And when silence follows closeness, the absence doesn't just hurt. It confuses. It rewrites things that once felt certain. And in that space, people start to question themselves, not just you. Epictetus said, "A ship should not ride on a single anchor, nor life on a single hope." But when we say nothing, we leave people hanging on to that one, fading hope. That maybe we'll return, maybe we'll explain, maybe we'll show up again someday. And that's not fair, because even if you're no longer present, the mark you left still lingers. And Stoicism teaches us not to run from the weight of that, but to accept it and act with intention. Because silence may delay consequences, but it doesn't erase a responsibility. And she didn't expect you to be perfect, just present enough to own your part of the story. 8. Clarity is kindness, even when it hurts. We often think we're being kind by not saying anything. We think, why make it worse? Or, I don't want to hurt her feelings. So we disappear, thinking silence is the softer option. But the truth? Silence is rarely gentle. It's just invisible pain. And Stoicism teaches us that real kindness is rooted in truth, not in avoidance. She didn't expect you to stay forever. Maybe she knew things were fading. Maybe she felt the shift. But what she didn't expect was silence in place of clarity. Even the truth that hurts is easier to hold than the question that never gets answered. So no, kindness isn't silence. Kindness is honesty with compassion. It's saying the hard thing because the other person deserves peace, not confusion. Don't confuse comfort with care. A coward stays silent to avoid discomfort. A Stoic speaks gently, even when it's hard, because truth is the beginning of healing. 9. Your discomfort is not a reason to vanish. Being uncomfortable doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you human. We all avoid things that feel heavy, tough conversations, emotional goodbyes, painful truths. But Stoicism teaches us that discomfort is not a signal to escape. It's a signal to lean in with wisdom, not run away with silence. She didn't expect a flawless version of you. She expected a real one. Someone who could say, "This is hard for me," instead of disappearing into the easy illusion of quiet. Because silence, while it might feel like peace in the moment, often grows into regret later. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." We imagine the worst: anger, disappointment, drama. But most of the time, people just want to be seen, heard, respected. Your discomfort is valid, but it's not an excuse to treat someone as if they were never part of your life. Discomfort is not your enemy. It's your training ground. And if you walk through it, instead of around it, you become someone stronger, clearer, more trustworthy, not just to others, but to yourself. 10. If you ever meant it, you'll respect the ending. There's something sacred in how we end things. Anyone can love when it's easy. Anyone can show up when emotions are new and everything feels full of possibility. But when it starts to unravel, when the distance creeps in, that's when your character is revealed. That's when the truth of what you meant and who you are gets tested. She didn't expect forever. Maybe she sensed the shift, the quiet pulling away. But she didn't expect you to vanish into silence. If you ever meant what you said, if the late-night talks, the laughter, the shared silence once felt real, then don't let it end in nothing. Respecting someone doesn't stop when things change. If anything, that's when it matters most. So no, you don't owe forever. But if it meant anything, you owe respect. That's the Stoic way. That's the human way. 11. Ghosting isn't peace. It's a delay of truth. Ghosting has become normal, common, easy, but that doesn't mean it's right. And if you're walking a Stoic path, if you're trying to live with intention, then disappearing without explanation isn't peace. It's just unfinished business hiding under the rug. She didn't expect you to solve everything. She didn't expect the perfect words or a long conversation. But she did expect you to show up honestly, especially at the end. And when you vanish, when you leave without a single word, you're not just avoiding them, you're avoiding yourself, your responsibility, your truth. Seneca said, "He who is brave is free." And that includes the bravery of uncomfortable truths. Telling someone, "I can't continue," or "I need space," isn't cruelty. It's freedom for both of you. Ghosting feels like freedom in the moment, but it creates invisible chains of guilt, of confusion, of regret. And those chains always come back. So ghosting, it's not strength, it's fear with a mask on. And peace doesn't come from running away. It comes from showing up just long enough to say what needs to be said. Nothing more, but not less. 13. You can be done without being distant. There's a quiet strength in saying, "I'm done," without turning cold. The end of a connection doesn't have to come with bitterness, cruelty, or complete disconnection. But we're rarely taught that. We think we have to shut down to protect ourselves, that if we're done, we have to cut off. But Stoicism teaches something different. Being done is a decision. Being distant is a defense. And you don't have to live in defense mode when you're confident in your choice. You can say, "This isn't right for me anymore," and still look someone in the eye. Still wish them peace. Still leave with warmth, even if it's quiet. True Stoicism isn't about withdrawal. It's about self-respect with respect for others. So if you're done, be done. But be present enough to close the door gently, not slam it shut and pretend it never existed. 14. Silence doesn't protect your peace. It postpones the pain. We often use silence like a shield. We think it will protect us from confrontation, from guilt, from discomfort. But here's what Stoicism teaches. Peace doesn't come from hiding. It comes from facing what's hard with clarity and calm. Silence isn't peace. It's just pressing pause on the pain. She didn't expect a fairy tale. She didn't expect every feeling to last forever. But she did expect something, a sentence, a signal, a goodbye. And when that never came, what she was left with wasn't peace. It was noise. The noise of second-guessing herself, of wondering what went wrong. That's the pain you thought silence would protect her from. But really it just passed it on. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." You don't control how she'll feel about the ending, but you do control whether you leave her in confusion or clarity. One invites healing, the other delays it. And let's be honest, silence doesn't really protect you either. You carry it, you remember it, the message you didn't send, the call you avoided, the words you swallowed. It lives in your body like unfinished business, and eventually It knocks. Facing things doesn't mean drama. It just means presence. A minute of discomfort now saves both people hours of wondering later. If you want peace, you have to walk through the hard part to get to it. So no, silence isn't the soft way out. It just shifts the weight. If you're truly seeking peace, speak, not to fix, not to justify, just to be real. 15. Maturity is measured in how you handle endings. Anyone can start something. Falling into connection is easy. It requires nothing more than timing and chemistry. But ending something? That's where maturity lives. That's where the real test begins. She didn't expect you to be perfect. She didn't expect you to stay if you weren't feeling it anymore. But she expected maturity. Not in the sense of being emotionless or always knowing what to say, but in the sense of handling the ending like an adult, not vanishing like a scared version of yourself. So yes, if you want to know where you really are in your emotional growth, don't look at how you start something. Look at how you end it. Do you show up? Do you speak clearly, even when it's hard? Do you respect what was shared? Because maturity doesn't run from endings. It honors them. 16. Disappearing doesn't make you less accountable. It just makes you harder to understand. It's tempting to believe that if you disappear, the situation disappears with you. That if you say nothing, if you step back quietly enough, the mess will clean itself. But it doesn't. The absence doesn't erase the connection, and it certainly doesn't erase the impact. Stoicism doesn't let us hide from our part in someone's story. It asks us to own it, with courage. She didn't expect everything to work out perfectly. She didn't expect to always be understood. But what she did expect was effort. A word. A signal that said, I see this ending too, and I respect it enough to name it. When you went silent, it didn't just hurt her. It left her trying to translate your silence into meaning. That's not fair, and it's not stoic. You are still responsible for how you leave. Disappearing doesn't make the pain vanish. It just adds questions to it. Be brave enough to be seen in the ending, not just the beginning. That's how you build peace with others. That's how you build peace with yourself. Presence isn't just for the beginning. It matters most at the end. It's easy to be present in the beginning. When everything is fresh and full of potential, presence feels natural. You reply quickly, you ask questions, you show up. But presence, real presence, isn't measured at the start. It's measured in how you finish. She didn't expect you to be perfect. She didn't expect you to stay if your heart had shifted. But she did expect that same presence you gave her at the start to still exist, even if only for a final moment. Because the end is when people need clarity the most. When they need to know they weren't just a phase or a silence to move on from. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good." And in relationships, no matter how short or deep, being good means showing up with presence at the end, not just at the start. It means not vanishing into the void when it gets hard. It means choosing maturity over the illusion of detachment. Silence at the end isn't neutral. It's loud in its absence. It echoes. And she didn't expect forever. She just expected a little presence. Enough to say goodbye. Enough to mark the ending with respect, not a fade-out, not a disappearing act. Presence is a choice. Even when it's inconvenient, even when it's uncomfortable. If someone gave you their time, their trust, their vulnerability, they deserve a little presence in return. especially when the chapter closes. So show up, just for a moment, just to say what's true. That's Stoic presence. Quiet, but never absent. Calm, but never cold. Strong, not silent. Closure isn't always mutual, but it should always be offered, one of the hardest truths. You might not get closure from someone. They might not respond. They might not understand. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't offer it. Stoicism teaches that we act according to our principles, not the reaction we hope to get in return. She didn't expect to walk away with all the answers. But what she did expect was some kind of closure, a final page in a book that mattered. And when you stayed silent, that closure turned into questions she had to carry alone. Questions that may not even have real answers, but deserved your honesty anyway. Epictetus said, "To accuse others for one's own misfortunes is a sign of want of education. To accuse oneself shows that one's education has begun." That's what this is, emotional education, knowing that your silence may have protected your comfort, but it didn't protect her peace. Closure isn't about winning or being right. It's about giving both people the chance to let go without feeling discarded. Closure is an offering, not a demand. Give it, not because it guarantees healing for them, but because it proves you're becoming the kind of person who chooses clarity over comfort. That's what it means to grow. That's what it means to live with intention. 18. Silence doesn't protect. Your image, it shapes your legacy. You may think saying nothing leaves less room for judgment, that by going silent, you'll appear more composed, more detached, maybe even more mysterious. But silence doesn't protect your image. It builds it. Every silence becomes part of your story. And what you think hides your flaws might actually define them. She didn't expect you to write poetry. She didn't expect a dramatic farewell. She expected humanity. And when silence took its place, she was left not only with pain, but with a version of you she didn't recognize. One that didn't align with the way you once laughed with her, cared for her, opened up to her. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." And being a good person isn't just about the high moments. It's about what you do when the feelings fade, how you handle the discomfort, how you treat people when they're no longer needed, but still deserving of respect. Because you're not just writing the end of a connection, you're writing your character, one action at a time. 21. Don't let silence become a habit you mistake for strength. After a while, silence starts to feel like strength, like a kind of power. You hold your words back. You become the one who walked away. And it feels controlled, disciplined even. But there's a fine line between emotional discipline and emotional distance. And if you're not careful, silence can turn into a habit you start mistaking for wisdom. She didn't expect you to open up completely, but she did expect you not to vanish, like a lesson unfinished. And when you did, maybe you told yourself it was the Stoic thing to do. Detached, calm, non-reactive. But Stoicism isn't about emotional detachment. It's about intentional action. Don't let silence become your reflex. Don't let it be your legacy. Because the people you leave behind don't just remember that you left, they remember how you left. And if silence becomes your habit, one day you'll find you've become a stranger to everyone who once mattered. Speak when it's time. Say the hard thing with a soft tone. That's real strength. That's what Stoicism, at its heart, has always been about. 19. You don't have to feel ready to be respectful. We wait too long sometimes. We wait until we have the perfect words, until the emotions settle, until we feel less guilty, less confused, more ready to say something. But in waiting, we lose our chance, and the silence we thought was temporary becomes permanent. And so does the damage. She didn't expect you to have it all figured out. She didn't need a polished statement or a perfectly timed explanation. She just expected something, anything, that showed you still recognized what was shared, but you were waiting for the right day, for the right feeling, for the courage. And sometimes that day never comes, unless you create it. Stoicism reminds us that right action doesn't wait for perfect feelings. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." That's the work. You don't have to feel fully ready to choose respect. You just have to choose it. So show up, even if you're nervous, even if it's been a long time, even if you fumbled everything until now. Because it's not too late to be respectful. It's not too late to say you didn't deserve silence. The words you never said still speak. Funny, isn't it, how the words you never say are the ones people remember the most, not because they were beautiful, but because they were missing. She didn't expect you to go silent forever. She expected something, not to fix it, not to change your mind, just a moment, a whisper of closure, a sign that she mattered, that you did, too. If you've made it this far, maybe some part of you has felt that silence. Maybe you were the one who walked away, or maybe you were the one left with nothing but silence echoing where a goodbye should have been. Either way, you're here, still reading, still listening. That's not random. It means something in you knows there's more to say, not just to someone else, but maybe to yourself. So before you scroll away and slip back into the noise of the day, pause. Say something here, right now. Write a comment that your past self would be proud of. Write what you wish you would have said before it was too late. Or just drop a yes if you're not quite ready to speak, but you still feel it. Say anything, say everything, say something. And if this stirred something in you, if it made you breathe a little deeper or feel a little heavier, that means this work is doing what it's meant to do. We don't chase clicks here. We build reflection, quiet corners, space to feel what most people skip. So hit the like not because it's trendy, but because truth deserves a moment. And subscribe, not because everyone else is, but because maybe you've just found a place where silence gets turned into something real. This little page isn't about going viral. It's about going honest. And who knows? Your comment might be the closure someone else never got. Go ahead, surprise yourself.